So I know a lot of the people that have been viewing my channel regularly or have listened to me wherever I happen to be on the internet, podcasts, call-in shows, so on and so forth, are definitely very interested in my take on the super flyweight card, especially the main event, Tito Gonzalez being defeated by a pretty vicious knockout by Srisaket Rungvisai. I think a lot of people kind of get it twisted when it comes to my kind of viewing on boxing in general, boxing at the lower weights in particular, and so on and so forth. I think there's a certain amount of people that think that that I was like some Roman Gonzalez fanboy, Chocolatito, like super fan or something. I like Gonzalez, but the thing is, all I did was I recognized his talent before other people did. I'm somebody that follows the entire sport in its entirety, strawweight to heavyweight. And so to see Gonzalez rise up and beat the crap out of the man of the division at 105 pounds back when he was there, Yuta was the best fighter in that division. Gonzalez pieced him up, took him out. Sometimes what goes around comes around. Gonzalez had his heyday, had an incredible run. Absolutely deserved to be pound for pound number one. Actually, even sooner than he was given that title, than he was given that crown. He absolutely deserved it. He beat pretty much the best and the baddest guys at the weights that he fought at. And ultimately, boxing is a weight class sport, and it is called pound for pound for a reason. It's about the ability that you show and the ability that you show against fighters of other high caliber, high quality, high levels of ability. And if you show that ability and you're nary losing a round, much less losing a fight, as Gonzalez did up until recently, then you absolutely deserve the title pound for pound, especially when you take those talents and you move north with them through several weight classes. Or, I guess in some cases, move down with them. Dropping a weight class or two. Basically proving that it transcends any one given weight class, and it's not necessarily just about your physical ability. It's also, in part, your level of boxing IQ, boxing ability, technical strength, and such that allows you to transcend what is otherwise generally thought of as a brutal sport, a brute sport, a blood sport. Srisaket Rungvisai, incidentally, very much approaches the sport in that fashion, a very brutal, blood sport-esque way. And it isn't entirely surprising that Gonzalez would ultimately seem to most likely meet his end against somebody like Srisaket. Because of the fact that, it's kind of how he came up. A lot of the time it's live by the gun, die by the gun, especially in boxing. And boxing is a brutal sport. Once you get to a certain age or even a certain level where if you're not training to be the best that you absolutely can be, the best of your ability, that optimal level, especially as you're moving up through weight classes, and especially as you're moving up through weight classes, fighting the best guys at those next weight classes up. Not only the best guys, but guys that are bona fide physical destroyers. Then it becomes all the more dangerous, and especially so when your style is that of Chocolatito's, which is a very high risk, high reward, definitely a high reward style, but a high risk style all the same. And one where if you're going in there against the guy that has as high of a knockout ratio, that has as big of a punch as Srisaket Rungvisai, I think it was Arega Union who he knocked out with a body shot, and then Union started vomiting all over the canvas. That's the level of power this guy has. He has, insides changing power. He has bone-breaking power that, you take with you for the rest of your life, not just for the rest of the fight sometimes. But hey, Srisaket did his thing. He manages to retain his WBC Super Flyweight Championship over Tito Gonzalez, and is a much higher profile fighter now than he was a year ago. And the funny thing is, he's a former champion too. He was actually the guy that Carlos Cuadras beat for Cuadras to become the champion at first, and then of course Chocolatito defeated Cuadras, albeit controversially, and then Srisaket managed to kind of get the run back in a bit of a kind of a funny triangle theory-esque matchup between those three, not unlike, I guess you might say, Ali, Frazier, and Foreman. That's probably the most famous one that you could think of. But yeah, man, Srisaket did a fantastic job and may have ended Chocolatito's career. Definitely ended his reign as the top pound for pounder, or even one of the top pound for pounders. Chocolatito just looked out of it, early on even. I do think that had he lasted maybe a couple more rounds, got into the mid rounds, maybe he could have worked some things out, worked some kinks out, got into a rhythm as he did in the first fight. He had some really tricky early rounds against Srisaket in the first fight, but once he got his rhythm together and started putting his punches together, he was able to start catching Srisaket. But Srisaket was better trained for this fight, and I think honestly Chocolatito was probably worse trained for this fight. He's had the look of a fighter that isn't hungry anymore for a couple of fights now. Not even necessarily just in the first Srisaket fight, but in the Quadros fight to a degree. I mean, even in the Arroyo fight to a degree. A lot of people thought he looked lackluster a little bit in that fight too. That was the fight where it seemed like he was starting to slack off in his training. You could tell in his body. He wasn't kind of the lean, mean punching machine that he was from 105 to 112. He's a little bit chubby, a little bit flabby, for the last 4 fights straight, and especially so in this fight. I think it might just be a case of, he has a lot more money than he used to. It's culminated in some of the bigger purses that he's ever made. He was always making pretty good purses in Japan and such, but it's definitely had a big increase recently, and it's definitely enough to retire on. I'd be willing to bet for Chocolatito, especially in Nicaragua, in his home. But sometimes, if you get even just a little bit lackadaisical, it can cost you dearly, and it can absolutely cost you dearly when you're maybe a little bit lackadaisical, if not fairly lackadaisical, which I imagine Chocolatito might be nowadays, against Srisaket, who's about as savage as it gets. I recently have mentioned the fact that he's a lot more savvy than he gets credit for as well. He's really not a crude fighter. He's not your kind of Provodnikov, Margarito, just kind of come forward, throw out your punches and hit you with something bigger. He's doing that. He's also doing some kind of sneaky stuff, some kind of crappy stuff, some kind of slick stuff, clinching you, breaking his own clinch and hitting you on the break. But just before the ref is about to kind of have that one beat in where he's about to kind of reach in and break the clinch. Very, very clever stuff. The way that he kind of hides the headbutts, obviously, that's probably the most obvious with Srisaket, but he hides it behind punches really nicely. A lot of body shots, especially. He'll hit you. It's basically like you're in his way, you're in his entire body's way, you're in his elbow's way, you're in his head's way, etc. And it's your fault if you get hit with any of that stuff in the midst of him throwing punches at you, because he will be throwing punches at you and he will be coming forward after you as he's doing it. It's very hard to imagine somebody backing Srisaket up unless he goes up and fights Luis Neri at 118 or something. Other than that, I very highly doubt even the likes of Naoya Inoue would be backing him up. Although you never know. I think that would be a hell of a fight. Of course, his mandatory is now Juan Francisco Estrada. That would be a hell of a fight, absolutely, too. Much more so of a clash of styles. Maybe a bit of a mini Pacquiao versus Marquez, in a way. Estrada's style is so similar to Marquez's, albeit I think he's just a little bit sharper than Marquez at it, and I think he's better at cutting off the ring as well. Although he doesn't necessarily have as much power as either Juan Manuel or especially Rafael. Rafael was a bona fide puncher. But Srisaket he managed to definitely take hold of the throne. It's kind of unfortunate that Chocolatito isn't necessarily going to be able to completely enjoy the fruits of his labor of pretty much getting the lighter weight classes, the flyweights, super flyweights, back onto the main stage in major televised network boxing in the U.S. and the general Anglosphere, U.S., UK, etc. Because he absolutely deserved it, he absolutely earned it, and he winds up kind of being the one to pave the way back for some of these guys to maybe become bigger stars than they otherwise would have been. So I think Srisaket, Quadros, Estrada, Inoue, especially Srisaket, Quadros, and Estrada, the three of them are especially well known because of their fights against Chocolatito. And of course, more recently now that they've gotten a little bit more attention, their fights against each other. But Chocolatito definitely deserves a lot of credit for kind of paving the way back for lighter guys in the same vein as Benito Lopez, Michael Carbajal, Johnny Tapia, Mark Two Sharp Johnson, Kohosai Galaxy, etc. All the true greats of the lighter weight classes, historically the all-time greats. And Chocolatito absolutely deserves to go down with those guys. Became one of only 2 fighters to win titles from 105 through 115. The only other one was Leo Gomez, and Gomez took a hell of a lot more losses than Gonzalez did along the way of being able to achieve that. He was more of like a persevering fighter that he would lose a title, win a title, lose a title, win a title. But yeah, Chocolatito, it's kind of tough to see him continuing on too far past this point, and it's been a hell of a run, almost 10 years as either a champion or about to become a champion, depending on when he vacated his belts, and then he would win the next one at the next weight class up. But incredible run. Best fight the best of these divisions, and Chocolatito was no different. He was absolutely looking to fight all the best guys that there were out there. He missed a couple of guys, as most fighters tend to, Giovanni Segura, Dani Nietes, but Chocolatito wasn't entirely he really wasn't at all to blame for those fights not happening. Maybe somewhat with Segura. I don't know. That was kind of a case of them circling each other and plausible deniability on either side. But ultimately, I do think Chocolatito probably would have beat Segura. Even though back when it was being talked about, I actually thought Segura would beat him. But turned out Chocolatito was a lot better than even I thought back then. But and Srisaket has definitely turned out to be better than I initially thought or anticipated, and especially with as focused as he is now as a fighter, and with his purses now getting bigger. Hopefully he doesn't get too big for his britches the way it seems like Chocolatito may have gotten recently. I doubt he will, just because he has that aura about him where like he just seems like just an absolute tough guy. Like he really enjoys being a badass. He has that look about him. Whereas Chocolatito seems to be more of like a family man who just happens to be a great boxer. A generally jovial guy otherwise. And I think that jovialness has kind of overtaken a lot of that, hard fought, straight from the streets, from the ghettos of Nicaragua rage that he used to fight with the intensity of, not unlike Ricardo Mayorga, albeit Mayorga was a lot more overt with that rage in a lot of ways. Or even Rosendo Alvarez, one of his predecessors at the lighter weights, Rosendo Buffalo Alvarez, great fighter in his own right. The only man to ever give Benito Lopez a tough fight. But I'm kind of veering off here. Fantastic win for Srisaket. I'm definitely very interested to see his next fight. It's either going to be the mandatory challenge of Estrada, hoping it is. I'm really, really hoping it is. Or possibly now Inoue. I'd imagine Inoue is probably going to wind up fighting somebody else in the interim since Chocolatito did not win. And since Srisaket, I doubt will drop that WBC belt for Estrada to just kind of inherit. But either way, Estrada versus Cuadras 2 wouldn't be a bad fight. I'll get to that one in a separate video. Srisaket versus Inoue is an absolute banger, I think. Estrada's a little bit more of a spoiler, though, a bit more of a technical spoiler. But, he can make fun, exciting fights as well. I think ultimately Inoue and Srisaket would force fun and exciting fights out of him. Estrada wouldn't just be putting on a technical masterclass against those guys, I don't think. If he did, that'd be something truly historically incredible, I'd say. But all I got to say is much props to Chocolatito. I think this might be the end for him because it's hard to imagine him having too many more fights or even another fight after kind of ascending to the heights that he managed to reach recently and then getting kind of knocked off of that perch that he absolutely deserved. Don't let anybody tell you different, I see a lot of people, a lot of crabs in the bucket. A lot of crabs in the bucket with regard to Chocolatito. A lot of crabs in the bucket. A lot of Steven from Django behavior when it comes to Chocolatito. I'll put it that way. Sometimes you just don't know what you have until it's gone. And, I think that's going to be the way it is with this man, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, for quite a few fans. Eventually they'll come around and realize the true greatness that he is and was. And hey, you never know. Maybe he'll be able to come back. Kazuto Ioka at Flyweight is still a very big money fight in Japan. Definitely. But on to bigger and better things for Srisaket, and however it goes for Chocolatito, he's a hell of a fighter, and he definitely has been. First bout Hall of Famer, very easily. But that's it for this one. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.